Hey guys, wanted to talk about spark plugs, reading spark plugs by doing a plug chop, which is really the only way. You want to read the insulators after you pull the threads off, and then there's also information to be had by looking at the threads here and the grounding post and a host of other things. But if you're out there tuning carburetors or tuning fuel injection or whatever, whether it's a dirt bike or a lawnmower or a car, this can be helpful information for you. So first, without going into the plug chops, you'll always have the old farmer guy or whatever that goes, this one's rich, and this one's maybe okay. You get these up here where they focus. So yeah, rich, okay. Not necessarily wrong, but it really doesn't tell you a damn thing about how the engine's really running. What you could see from those two plugs there really only showed you what it's doing at idle or really low RPM, low load. Most people can kind of figure that out for themselves just by vacuum gauges or whatever else. And the mystery without a air fuel meter is what's your wide open throttle mixture, or what's your moderate load mixture. So here we've got the threads off this one. This plug is from a 2013 F-150. It's got 100,000 miles on it. So this is how that engine's been running basically for 100,000 miles. And all this shading in here is just stuff that's accumulated and burned off from light load, moderate load situations. Can kind of disregard that for now. And what we're really interested in is this burn ring down here. So you've got a shoulder. Come on, focus here. Sorry for camera. All right, so you've got this burn ring here that comes down to the shoulder. When you're under high load, wide open throttle, whatever, it cleans this insulator down to here. And then when you get so far down, the plug is cold enough that it can't burn it anymore unless the engine temperature's even higher. So what does this all mean? Well, basically, for an engine that's happy, over the ages, man has learned that about a heavy 1/16 to maybe an 1/8 of an inch at most of ring down here is right in the zone where you want to be. So this being, a modern fuel injected car or truck, it's a 5-liter V8. It's not modified, it's completely stock. This is what we're getting here. So, Ford decided that this was a perfectly running engine right here. And then here's another example. This one is out of a carbureted ski boat. Come on, focus. There we go. Sort of okay. This is a carbureted ski boat. Boats generally, it's a 1984 ski boat with a 351 Ford in it, all stock jetting, and boats just run fat. Fat and happy. You're not going to have hesitations. It's not going to do weird things. It's going to burn a lot of gas, but it's not going to lead out on you. And boat engines get ran really hard. So when they originally were carbureting those boats, I think they set them up pretty heavy. But you can see this has about double the burn ring there. So, this thing's probably running, I don't know, 11 or 12 to 1, something like that. Where, this guy from the fuel injected Ford, come on, focus, come on. About half that. This is what it's going to look like, when you're, sorry, bear with me on the focus. This is what it's going to look like when you're, right around like somewhere between 13 and 14 to 1. So, modern engines, when you're wide open throttle, they're going to run a little bit of enrichment to, just kind of cool things down. But otherwise, most of the time, they're going to run you, near stoic. So since this is just a passenger vehicle, pickup truck, it's not going to be spending all of its time at wide open throttle. So we can assume that it's running stoic for most of its life. And this very dark ring down here, you know, that's like just the width of my pointer here. Probably a 1/16 of an inch. That's about stoic. And then there's kind of another burn line there, a little bit higher up. You know, that's probably your heavy load, wide open throttle mark there. So, you know, you're 14 to, you know, 13. So this puppy's probably every bit of 12 to 1. And it runs good like that. But this could be leaned out. So here is a plug from another 351 Ford. Now this one, you can see in the background here, I've got a bunch of plugs. I've been doing some testing. This is from a carbureted boat. Went out and ran this at high load, 3,000 RPM for, I don't know, 10 minutes. And then immediately shut the engine off and pulled the plug. So it's got no idle time up on top here. Basically zero mid-range operation. It's just the high load. And the burn line is pretty faint. It hasn't been running long enough to really burn it in deep. But you can see here we're pretty much spot on with where that fuel injected Ford plug is. So that kind of shows you that at wide open throttle, this thing it's right there. Honestly, for a carbureted boat, this came from a boat as well. This should probably be just a little bit richer, just for margin of error. But, you know, we're going from this to this white one. So you can see the difference in the jetting. And, you know, getting into jetting carburetors, that's a whole different deal. They're all different. There's different ways to do things. Now this one is from a 2-stroke. And this is from a racing engine. It's a Yamaha 701 based Wave Runner, and it's got big carburetors on it. And when you have big carbs, you usually need to have really fat or rich idle mixture or mid-range mixture, because when you whack the throttle wide open to start your race or accelerate hard, these carburetors don't have an accelerator pump, so they'll go lean on you because you don't have enough RPM and airflow velocity through the carburetor to really get good signal. So you lose a lot of vacuum in the carb, and you need a rich mixture down there to kind of get you through that transition. So you can see here we're really, really rich, you know, in the idle areas up top. And if you look at the threads here, it's just black as night. And if you pulled this right after a good watt run, the top of this would actually be, you know, more brown looking. It'd be burned off. But since we spent some time idling, this got fat again up on the threads and all that. But the point is, you look here, there's your burn ring. So there's your watt burn ring on this 2-stroke. And it's the same type of deal. You know, you've got between a 1/16 and an 1/8 of an inch of ring there from the shoulder to the top of the ring. So this thing's pretty happy, you know. And on 2-strokes, especially racing applications and everything else, you kind of want to look at your piston wash, and there's other things for 2-strokes to look at. But this is a really good indicator of what this engine's doing when it's at watt. So that's where you want to be. And then if you start looking at threads, we can get into timing. Let's see if I can show you. So this is from the plug that was just ran a little bit. And see if I can get this to focus. You can kind of see there's some rainbow going on. So the top of this, come on camera. I'll have to tell you what I'm seeing. So the top of this plug, come on, focus. People want to see. We're burned off. We're kind of gray, burned off. Then we start to get into a rainbow. And then the bottom of the rainbow, you know, your pot of gold is right about here on my pointer. So you got about an 1/8 of an inch, maybe an 1/8 of an inch left until you hit the threads. This is from that carbureted boat engine. and it is running 34 degrees. 34 degrees of full timing. So when you're at high RPM, high load, all your ignition advanced timing is in 34 degrees. Now, that's a good spot to be. If you're, we're not talking about drag racing here, but, some guys like to run them down. You can push your timing down, 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 down. And when it starts to get to the base here where the threads are at, that's when you're getting into the danger zone. And this is generated by heat, right? So the hotter it is, this thing's glowing red hot inside your engine, and it's burning that plating back. And the hotter it gets here, the further it'll burn it back. Well, it burns back all the way to the base. You're starting to reach the point of no return, and the engine's getting hot enough that, through jetting, and this is considered more of a timing reading, but you're getting hot enough that you could start damaging components. So just for all you home gamers out there, you kind of want to have your timing just past this turn to where it's in the vertical section. So maybe halfway between the turn and the base, you want to be in this range somewhere. And, if you're on a dyno, you can play with stuff and, you're going to learn a lot from a dyno. But we're talking about, you're tuning your dirt bike or whatever, or you got a ski boat, or you got your hot rod car and you got a carburetor on it, or you're even doing fuel injection and you're tuning timing with a computer. You can still look at these, and this is going to tell you exactly what's going on in your cylinders, and not every cylinder will be same. So you really, as you're creeping up on the limits of where you want to be, you should be checking other cylinders as well. But about 1/8 of an inch from the threads up is a good safe spot to be for your ignition timing. If you've got way too little timing, you're going to be out here somewhere. If you got too much, you're going to be down getting on the threads, or if you can't even see the mark and it's burned right down, you may even start eroding this away, and you'll burn the strap right off of it. So that's ignition timing. And then your idle, you can read on the top of this spark plug. So right on the face here, you can read that shading, and that'll tell you a lot about your idle. Now this plug, as you can tell, spent 0 time idling. Okay, and from that same engine, where is it here? I don't want to get stuff mixed up. Here. So from that same engine, this is the top of it. You can see how fat the idle is on this thing. So, I haven't worked on the idle too much yet, or the the low speed jetting, but fat and happy. And usually what that amounts to is, people, they want to start up a boat and they want it to idle good, and it's on the choke or whatever, and it comes off the choke kind of quick, and they're putting it in gear, and those props are high load, and they don't want to mess around, right? They just want it fat, and they want it to restart nice. So a lot of boats, when you see them, they have kind of chubby looking idle like this, and it's kind of the way they run, unfortunately, when they're carbureted. But we could lean this one out. But that's that's your idle there. So, well, here's another example here of this is the jet ski engine, and this is a little more brown on top. You can't really tell on the camera. This is a little more brown, so this is actually running a little better on the idle. And who knows what the idle time was, so this boat may have idled all the way across the lake and then, got on its trailer or whatever, and it came to me. So anyway, that's a kind of a crash course on reading spark plugs for wide open throttle and idle. And I guess your mid-range is basically what you're going to do is you're just going to read the rest of this insulator here, kind of the color off of that. So if it's really black all the way kind of through here, well, here, so for an example, if we look at this one, that's from the jet ski, here's your burn ring. Here's your burn ring for your watt. And then the rest of this is pretty darn chocolatey brown, and as we get to the top, it's just kind of jet black, right? So that's your idle. Come on. That's your idle up here, and then this is kind of your mid-range area, and then that defined ring, and there's always going to be a ring, that's your watt. So this thing's plenty chubby in the mid-range. It's extra fat or rich on your idle, and at wide open throttle where the rubber meets the road on a racing two-stroke, it's right on the money. So, you know, this is a machine that, depending on how big the carburetors are, you could lean this out in the mid-range and idle a little bit, and you know, it would be happier. But then with those really big carburetors, if you snap the throttle wide open at low RPM, you may risk stalling. So there's a trade-off to be had when you're running really big carburetors on a small engine. So this engine has dual 44 millimeter carburetors. It would normally have like a single 44 in some cases, where this could be cleaned up a lot. And that's why a lot of people say you get better fuel economy out of a application like that with smaller carburetors, because you don't have to worry about those lean hesitations from low velocity at low RPM and high throttle openings with the smaller carburetors. But I'm rambling. If you've made it this far, thanks for watching, and hope this helps. Have fun tuning and just have fun riding, I guess.